locals. If you move to Texas and let's say you're from someplace like California or New York, but mostly California, you might want to keep that to yourself a little bit. Texas locals, the people that have lived there their whole life, aren't too keen on what's going on in their state, and they kind of blame Californians for it. There's far too many Californians moving into this state for their liking. And they're kind of right. The biggest influx of people migrating to Texas is coming from California. Native Texans are seeing the change, and they're watching their state change, and they don't like it, and they're blaming Californians and outsiders for it. Number 3. It's getting crowded. So, like we were just talking about, a lot of people are moving into Texas, mostly from California. Well, this is creating more and more problems, not just angering the locals. You have so many people moving in that they can handle it, but it's getting harder and harder to handle coming from the state government. When you have that many people coming in, you got to start working on infrastructure, you got to build more schools, classes are getting overcrowded, got to build more hospitals, more power plants, more water treatment facilities. And like we talked about earlier with the traffic, they've got to start working on train systems and things like that just to alleviate some of the traffic issues they have from the crowds. It's getting crowded in Texas, and it's a problem that's not going away. I mean, unless you're living in Lubbock or Amarillo, you haven't seen a change in that population in like 50 years. Number 2, the political divide. The political divide in the United States has been getting thicker and thicker every single year. I mean, there's always been a little tension between the two parties. It has just been put in hyperdrive over the last, I'd say, 15 years or so. If you're not sure what the political divide is, it's kind of that thing these days where if you're a Republican, you absolutely hate Democrats and Democrats hate Republicans, and no matter what, you just dislike them by the way they vote. And there's a lot of that going on in the United States right now. Texas being one of the hot spots. And there's sort of a reason for it there. Like we were saying earlier, a lot of Californians have been moving to Texas. Californians tend to be liberal and vote Democrat. Texas has always been a very red Republican state. This has created a problem because as the years go on, their elections are getting closer and closer. Normally when someone leaves a state like California, New York, or wherever they leave, they usually move, on average, to a state that shares the same political views that they do. Like if you're a liberal leaving California, you're going to move to like maybe Oregon or Washington. If you're a Republican leaving California, you're going to move to like Arizona or Idaho. Texas isn't following that trend. They're attracting everyone. And this is changing what goes on at the ballot box. Now, to be fair, that's not entirely why. It's not just a bunch of Californians moving there changing the election outcomes. That's not totally California's fault. A lot of it is younger Texans are starting to register as Democrats. But most people in Texas, most of the locals, don't see any other reason for it other than the Californians that are moving there. They're changing their state and they don't like it. And this creates even more tension in the state when it comes to political subjects. Now, are there band of Texans running around asking you who you voted for and stuff like? No, it's not that bad, but it is an issue for a lot of Texans. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There is a link down below. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, housing prices are on the rise. One of the main draws to Texas since forever was affordable housing. You could get in on the American dream and buy a house in Texas for half the price you could in California, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, wherever. Texas is just a very affordable place to buy a home. That's starting to change. Cities like Austin have seen their real estate prices climb by like 30% over the last year. And that trend is going to continue. Like I had said in a video I did late last year, Texas still has affordable housing, but probably not for much longer. And that's the reason it's on this list. There's no sign of that slowing down. If you're thinking about moving to Texas, do it now, because in the next 3 or 4 years, it's not going to be considered an affordable place to buy a home. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now, Texas is not a bad state. Please don't take this video like that. It's a good state with some negatives, just like every other state. All right, everyone, have a great day. Be nice to each other.